Here, more and more younger people learn English because to get jobs. Did you get one of these? Okay, let me get another. Anyway, as I was saying, and you know, I put a glass of water here. Okay, Spanish is the first language here. Every year, there's more and more young people speaking English because they see it on TV. In school now, they're emphasizing English as a second language. People who work in tourism, most of them have some fluency in English because the majority of the tourists are from North America. They come here, which is good. But the problem is, not everybody speaks English. So what does that mean? Sooner or later, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you need some Spanish, okay? And how much? Well, as much as you want to study, and the minimum you need is a survival level. What do I mean by survival level? To be able to communicate, get a taxi, ask for something in a grocery store, if there's an emergency, express, you know, what's going on. So if you want to live here, the minimum you have to have is a survival level Spanish. You also need some Spanish if you plan, God forbid, to do some kind of business here. The best candidates are people who have pensions, sources of income. If you want to make a living here, it's a pain in the neck. If you get involved with the Costa Rican, romantically, etc., if you don't speak the same language, it's hard enough to communicate when you both speak the same language in a relationship, let alone different languages. So, I know guys who are women, Americans, English speakers, in relationships with Costa Rican women. They don't speak much Spanish. I don't see how there can be any communication, but me, Tarzan, you, Jane, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, also, to get the most out of the country, it's a wonderful country, interesting culture. The more Spanish you know, the better. Okay? I'm breaking my talk into two parts. The first part are some, what do you say, some ideas that may make you accelerate your learning process in Spanish if you pay attention. And what I'm saying is, you're faced with this task of learning another language. Where do I start? So this is kind of give you an idea of how to learn Spanish. How to learn Spanish. Where to begin. Learn something practical. So, first point, you want to build your vocabulary. Why? The more words you know, if somebody's rattling a native speaker Spanish off at 1,000,000 miles an hour, if you can get a word here and there, you can get the gist of what's going on. On the other hand, if you know 1,000, 2,000 words, which isn't hard in a year or so, you can make yourself understood by using single words, and I'll explain later how to do that effectively. So I say 5 words a day. If you learn 10 words a day, do the figures in a year. If you're really ambitious, 20 words a day. And you can be your own teacher. How do you say glass? Vaso. The Spanish is very easy to pronounce. Instead of A-E-I-O-U, it's A-E-I-O-U. Once you know those 5 vowel sounds, you can pretty much sound out or learn how to pronounce any word. Okay? So, build your vocabulary. Once you can spell simple words in Spanish, watch Spanish TV programs, listen for new words, write down any new words, look them up later. One thing that's good to do is watch the news in English, the world news, and then look for a Spanish station that has the world news and see how much you can understand. Pay attention to where the locals speak. Spanish speakers are like Italians. There's a lot of emotion, okay? One time, years ago, I was watching a soap opera in Spanish. And my mother says to me, "Why are those people always angry at each other?" I said, "It's not anger. They're just very emotional, melodramatic." I have an Italian friend who lives here, and he says he gets together with some other Italian friends. They're just like Hispanics too. He says, "We get to lunch, 15 of us, and it sounds like we hate each other, we're fighting, we're just having discussions, you know." Listen to Spanish music. Everybody likes some type of music. Well, they have every kind of music in Spanish, from opera to rap, and everything in between it. You hear a catchy song, you know, something you like, you can pick up a few words here and there. One thing you can do here, it's really good, if you want to get some exercise, and learn a little Spanish too, you can take Latin dance lessons. There's a company called Maracumbe that has a bunch of schools all over, and you can learn basic, you know, steps and things. Good exercise, and you learn a little language. Okay, talk with as many different Spanish speakers as you can. Costa Rica, because it is a tranquil country, a peaceful country, they have what's called the Costa Rican dream, like the American dream. We get people from a lot of other countries. Spanish-speaking countries are here. Nicaragua, the Nicaraguans come in, most of our economy there's terrible. Looking for a better life, they do manual labor, things like that. We get people from Venezuela, everybody knows what's going on there. People from Argentina, Colombia. So not everybody here is Costa Rican. So when you learn to interact, you'll hear how different people speak. It's like in the U.S., a melting pot. Not everybody in the U.S. is from the U.S. and we're born there. 6, read aloud in Spanish. A lot of people, when they study, they stick a book in their face and read silently. If you read aloud 5-10 minutes a day, you can get your mouth used to pronouncing words in Spanish. Okay, you learn the 5 vowel sounds, A, A, B, O, U, and you practice reading. It's like boot camp for getting out in the real world, and you have to use it. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. You have to fail your way to success. Whether you're learning to play golf, tennis, knit, any new skill, you're going to make mistakes in the process. Everybody knows that you're not a native Spanish speaker. So if you put your foot in your mouth, big deal. I had a neighbor who was from the States, a retired man, and very bright man. He had a PhD in physics. He went out to a restaurant to eat with his wife here, and he ordered arroz con camarones. Okay, arroz is rice, and camarones, shrimp. But instead of saying camarones, he said camiones, which means trucks. So I said those tires must have been pretty hard to chew. My point is, he put his foot in his mouth. It was funny, but at least he made an effort. This is important. Let's say, when I was in elementary school, I'm sure a lot of you people, when you were younger, you got spelling, a list of spelling words every week, 20 words. One night you'd have to put them in alphabetical order, then you'd have to define them the next night, and then for homework you'd have to use them in complete sentences to make sure you could use the words. Well, one thing, when you learn vocabulary in Spanish and you're studying, practice using your new words in simple sentences. The food is good, the car is green, it rains at 3 o'clock. And if you can practice that, and it's the first step to applying Spanish in the real world, making a simple sentence. Okay? So, making sentences. What you want now is practical Spanish. You know, when you go, I remember when I started studying Spanish in high school in the States, reading and writing, no speaking. That's okay, but you want practical Spanish that you can use in the real world, because you're going to be immersed in the society. Some people are auditory learners, some are visual learners. Sometimes it helps to form a mental picture, like avión, airplane going through the sky. Of course, you're going to have to speak, all of this stuff is in these papers, by the way. You're going to have to speak in simple sentences because you're beginners. Baby talk, more or less, but you have to start someplace. Remember, your Spanish is not as good as your English, quite obviously. Now, one thing that's really good, number 12 here. I'm going to give you an example. It says to use nouns instead of sentences, nouns and verbs. Example, language is communication. Let's suppose you're living in California and you befriend an Hispanic person. And it could be friendship, romantic, whatever. And that person's been in the States for a while, but the English is a little shaky. So your friend says to you, your Spanish-speaking friend, tomorrow, you, I, 8 o'clock, my car, Malibu Beach, sun, walk, swim, rest, fish tacos, lunch, rest, more sun, swim, 4 o'clock, drive, home, change, dinner, Red Lobster, movie, okay? Everything I said, I didn't make a complete sentence, but you understood everything that I just said to you because I communicated with you. So, supposing, you're studying Spanish and you've learned 2,000 words and some verbs, and you're shaky on your sentences. My point is, to survive by using the nouns and the verbs like that, you can communicate with people. Language is communication. Doesn't matter how you do it, it's communication. Okay? So keep that in mind. Bear that in mind. You're not taking the language like in high school for a grade. You're taking it for your own edification, your own survival, and ensuring your success in the country and what you get out of it. Okay? So think of that. Remember, Spanish and English are more similar than different. They're about 70% similar and 30% different because they're based on Latin. They have Latin roots, okay? So, this is important. If you look at the similarities between the two languages, you can really improve. Okay, people say, oh, think in Spanish. That's true. But since the languages are so similar in a lot of ways, if you're thinking in English, you're almost thinking in Spanish. So look for the similarities when you're studying. Verb tenses. What are verb tenses? Tense is time. Yesterday I did this. Tomorrow I'll do this. Right now I'm doing this, etc. Okay? Are you my clients?
We are.
Glad to see you. I'll talk to you in a minute.
We're a day late and $1 short. Apologize for the
You're here. That's the important thing. Have a seat.
There you go. Great, thank you.